Hi, thank you for joining me in my studio. Thank you for joining Elegant and Earthy. Today I'm going to be making mugs, and I have already weighed all my clay. They're in 1.4 ounce balls, and I'm just going to start throwing some here for you to see. I have my bats in this pile over here, so I'll just put this on. I have just been trying this new technique using vinyl decals to create negative space, and I'm pretty excited about it. I just ordered a cutting machine to make my very own decals, so I've been having a lot of fun with that. And then what I'm doing is making mugs so that I can try the vinyl decals on the mugs and that type of treatment. So I'm pretty excited about it. I'm happy to share it with you. But before we can decorate a mug, we have to make one. So I'm starting with a pound and 4 ounces. Just trying to put it right in the center of my bat. First, I moisten my bat, as you saw, with my sponge, and then I dry it off with my washcloth. Now I'm slap centering. My hands are at an angle like this, like about 30 degrees each, making a little bit of a cone shape. Then I just take one of the yellow sponges, get my hand wet, and put my elbow right into my hip and keep it there. And then I push down because I really want the clay to adhere to that. So I push down first. This clay is a little bit hard. It's reclaimed from some plates I'm making. And so it's a little bit stubborn clay. It has some dry spots and some wet spots, and it has some bubbles in it, so it's a little bit of a stinker to work with, but that's okay, I don't mind. I have a fair bit of reclaimed clay in the studio right now, and I'm really trying not to add to it. So when I put my hands together and squeeze them together, that is called coning up. So I'm coning up, I'm squeezing right through here, and then I'm forcing the cone upward. And what that does is takes advantage of the centrifugal force of the wheel and helps me to center it. And then I take my thumbs and I push it a bit forward, away from me, and then I push it down. And when I get a fair amount down and centered, or if I believe it is centered, then I go ahead and karate chop it. I'm making it into a disc shape. And I want to make sure it is still centered, so I'm going to encourage it in a little bit. Now, some things that can make it feel uncentered when you're working on it are the very things I've got here, working with clay that is not uniform in moisture content, and also working with clay that has bubbles in it. Basically, I did a very haphazard job reclaiming it. So then I'm just going to take my thumb, put it in the center, and use these fingers to push it down like a tool. And this is where I begin to make the bottom of the vessel. I'm just going to pull that right out. And then I like to just check how thick it is. Now the mugs I'm making today will not have a foot, and for me, I like that amount. That's about just under 1/4 of an inch, and that's what I like. So I'm just gonna fill that hole right back in. And then I use my wood rib, and I just go ahead and give the bottom of this vessel a nice flat bottom. And when I'm happy with it, I'll turn the rib around and begin the side of my mug. I don't know if you can hear it, but there's bubbles that are popping. Then I just get my hands real wet and I hug it in. I hug it into myself. When I feel resistance on my hands, I put a little bit more water on the pot. And I'm just hugging it in towards me and really towards the center of the vessel. So now I have like a volcano. I'll just take my sponge and clean up my bat a little bit so I have a nice pleasant work surface. And I'll also clean up the inside of the rim. When you hug it in like that, it gets kind of wrinkly and uncomfortable. The clay gets uncomfortable. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and put some moisture on the inside and the outside. And the way I do that is I squeeze the sponge just above this joint and both fingers directed exactly where I need it, inside and outside. So then I start at the bottom with my index finger and I push in towards the center of the pot. And when I feel my fingers meeting, and they meet in an offset combination, I slowly raise my fingers up to the top of the pot. When I get close to the very top, I try to really take the pressure down. For some reason, that clay seems to be so much smoother and thinner and more vulnerable. And there's also, of course, a bubble at the top. So I'm gonna go back in at the bottom. That was my first pull. This will be my second pull. I'm trying to make the side uniform all the way up. Okay, we get a nice rip in the top, so I'm gonna take that little bit away. That's where a bubble was hanging out. So this one will be a little shorter than I had planned. That's okay, because people come in all sizes, and pots can come in all sizes too. Especially when you're working with reclaimed clay and you didn't do a great job reclaiming it. All right, so I'm gonna try my third and final pull. What I like to do is have my thumb touch the tip of my inside thumb and the knuckle of my outside thumb touching. That helps me to create a very uniform uniform wall for this vessel. And then I just raise my fingers up to the top. And I'm still not real happy with the very top, but I can work on that. So at this point, I'd like to remove the water that is gathered in the bottom. And I use this homemade sponge on a stick. And then I'm just gonna wipe up the wall on the inside. I'm going to reestablish my foot with a nice flat foot. Sometimes when you're pulling, the bottom of the vessel gets a little a groove or a nick from your fingernail or your inside sponge. So what I'm doing here is just reestablishing the perfect flat floor. And I'm using this tool and I'm working from the outside and just gently pulling to the center. When I gather a little bit of clay, I like to just put it in a nice pile. All right, so the next step I like to put the foot on next. So I use my Dirty Girls tool for that. And I'm just gonna run it along the bottom, and this creates really kind of a lovely foot. And then I take my metal rib, unless I've lost it. Here it is. And then I just want to clean up the outside, make it nice and smooth. Take away all the lines from my sponge. I'm gonna have to do that again. That's a little bit of clay. I'll just pile it up. Okay. Now we're gonna get a nice smooth surface. And then I like to use the nice soft red rib on the inside to take away any of the marks on the wall on the inside and to scrape away any slip that may have accumulated. Also using the rib to turn out the rim a bit. And then I think I will remove the moisture that's gathered again. Work my way up the wall and use this to create a nice flat surface. Nice smooth bottom to this vessel. Just bringing it in gently to the center. And then I want to just reaffirm this nice clean foot. Looking good. And I didn't really remove much clay. And now I'm just gonna work on the rim. And I just take this suede and I moisten it and just wrap it around the top of the rim. Now this rim we cut away, so the rim is a little thinner than we typically like. So I'm really pushing down to try to gather up some clay to develop this, you know, a little thicker rim, which is more pleasing when you're having a drink of your coffee or hot chocolate or tea. You like to have a little bit more of a rim, and you really like the rim to flare out a bit and then come to just a gentle point at the very end. Just a bit more pleasing. And then I like to just take the slip that's gathered on the inside and just remove it. And make sure the slip on the outside is removed as well. And then I like to dry the rim. Dry the board, the bat. It's called a bat, but it's a board that I have just thrown my pot on. So I like to really dry it up as best I can, make it nice and neat. I'm gonna take a tiny bit of water and put it right here at the top. And my wire tool to cut this off the bat. Now this is something I do with white clay. I cut it off the bat because when white clay tends to shrink, or the white clay that I use tends to shrink, it likes to crack. It likes to stick to the bat, and then it will pull, as it's shrinking, it pulls an S crack in the center of the pot. And if I just go ahead and do that one wire cut that I just did, it takes away, it gives the pot an opportunity to move without sticking to the bat. And it takes away the likelihood I'll have an S crack. So that's how you throw the vessel. I have already made pulled handles, and I think I've shown you a demo with pulling handles earlier, and then later we'll have a demo with attaching handles. So that's pretty much, that's you know, ceramics 101, how to throw a coffee mug. Thanks for joining.